The sirens were already echoing through the misty Washington hills when Detective Mara Ellsworth pulled into the cul-de-sac. It was 6:43 a.m., still gray enough that porch lights glowed like fireflies. The Decker home sat quietly at the end of the street, the kind of place people passed every day without a second thought. White siding, trimmed hedges, a basketball hoop in the driveway. But this morning, the street was lined with police cruisers, ambulances, and neighbors standing in pajamas behind yellow tape, whispering in fear. Nothing about the scene made sense. A family known for community picnics, school drop-offs, and Christmas decorations had suddenly become the center of Washington State's darkest morning of 2025. Mara stepped out of her unmarked car and was greeted by Officer Talia Rome, whose pale face told her everything before she said a word. "It's bad," Talia murmured. "Really bad." "What happened?" The mother called 911 at 5:58 a.m. She sounded hysterical. Dispatch could barely make out the words. Said something about waking up to an empty house. Lights on, doors open. "And the kids?" Mara asked. Talia swallowed. "Not accounted for." The Decker children, 13-year-old Cody, 9-year-old Renee, and 6-year-old Liam, were well known in the neighborhood. Mara had seen them riding bikes the last time she visited the area for a completely different case. Nothing about this place ever screamed danger. But now, the unease in the air felt almost physical. As they approached the front door, the mother, Allison Decker, sat wrapped in a blanket, trembling, her eyes red and distant. A paramedic hovered nearby. Allison looked up, her voice shaking. I locked up last night. Everything was normal. I kissed the kids goodnight, tucked them in. My husband was working a night shift, so it was just me. When I woke up," she paused, covering her mouth, "they weren't in their rooms." "Were there signs of forced entry?" Mara asked gently. Allison shook her head. "No, but the back door was open." Inside the house, the officers had already cleared the rooms. No signs of a struggle, no overturned furniture, no obvious break-in. The eeriness came from what was missing, small details that felt wrong. Renee's lamp was on. Liam's sneakers were by the front door, but his coat was gone. Cody's window was cracked open. Cold air drifting across his neatly folded clothes laid out for school. Something deliberate, something careful. Mara walked slowly down the hall, examining each doorway. The children's rooms looked undisturbed, as if the kids had simply vanished. But then she noticed something. Cody's desk chair was slightly angled toward the window, not pushed in. A detail too small for most people care about. But in cases like this, small things often mattered most. "What's the neighbor situation?" she asked. Talia replied. 2 houses reported hearing a car around 3 a.m. engine running for a few minutes, then gone. No description. No plates. Security cameras? There's one across the street, but it doesn't angle toward the Decker driveway. Convenient. Too convenient. By 8:12 a.m., search teams had formed. Drones deployed. 9 units moving through the nearby woods. As Mara stepped outside, she noticed a sheriff's deputy approaching with a strange expression. "You want to see this," he said. He led them to the edge of the backyard, near the tree line. There, barely visible beneath a patch of frost-covered grass, was a tire track. Deep, fresh, the kind that didn't match any vehicle owned by the Deckers. Mara crouched, gloved fingers brushing the imprint. "This is at least a mid-size SUV," she noted. "And the tread's distinctive," the deputy added. "Could help us narrow it down." Mara stood, scanning the woods, listening to birds, distant traffic, the movement of search teams. But there was something else, a feeling, like they were already behind, already too late. "Expand the search radius another 2 miles, she ordered. As she turned back toward the house, her phone buzzed. It was a forensics tech inside. "You're going to want to come down to the basement," he said. His voice was low, uneasy. "The basement? Why?" "Because we found something unusual." Mara hurried back inside. The basement door was open now. Officers gathered around the stairwell. She descended slowly. The air changed immediately. Colder, stale, carrying a faint metallic smell. On the concrete floor, illuminated by a single overhead bulb, was a rectangular shape covered by a tarp, not large enough to be a body, but heavy enough that 2 officers had struggled to move it. "What is it?" Mara asked. "No idea," the tech replied, but it was hidden behind a shelving unit. He pulled back the tarp. Underneath was a locked metal storage box, the kind used for tools or hunting equipment, but reinforced, customized, and outfitted with a digital keypad. "No one in the family claims to own it," the tech added, "and it wasn't here during our last welfare check 3 months ago." Mara stepped closer, pulse quickening. A lockbox, hidden, in a basement no one said they used. And then she saw the detail that made her stomach drop, a smear of mud across the latch, the same mud found near the tire tracks outside. Someone had been in the house, recently, and whatever was inside this box. Mara exhaled, steadying herself. "Open it," she said. The tech hesitated. "You sure?" "Open it." He keyed in an override code, the lock clicked, and the lid slowly lifted. Inside the metal container was something no one expected, something that would shatter the case before it even began. And in that moment, Mara realized the Decker children weren't just missing. They were part of something far darker than a simple abduction. Detective Mara Ellison stood in the doorway of the Decker family's home, the cold Washington air drifting in behind her as she entered. The house, once filled with the chaos and joy of 3 kids, felt frozen in time. Every toy, every school book, every worn shoe on the floor was a reminder of lives interrupted. And yet, the silence carried something heavier than grief, something that felt staged. She turned toward her partner, Detective Rowan Price. "Nothing about the scene feels right," she whispered. Rowan nodded. The door wasn't forced. No sign of struggle in the living room. Whoever did this, the kids must have known them. That single sentence would hang over the investigation like a storm cloud. Mara walked down the hallway toward the children's shared bedroom. 3 tiny backpacks rested against the wall, ready for school the next morning. A reading lamp still glowed faintly beside a stack of library books. It wasn't just tragic. It was calculated. Someone had taken their lives and left the house almost untouched. Upstairs, forensic techs scanned each surface. No fingerprints. No footprints. Not even a partial shoe tread near the back door. Everything was disturbingly clean. "Too clean," Mara murmured. "Almost like whoever did this had time. Or experience," Rowan added. But it was the father, Daniel Decker, who troubled Mara most. She had questioned countless grieving parents, some shattered, some numb, some angry. But Daniel appeared distant, hollow. His eyes tracked every officer like he was studying them, not seeking comfort from them. His face wore grief, but his posture was composed, unnervingly composed. Later that morning, Daniel sat in the interview room. He was cooperative, answering every question clearly. No signs of evasion, no contradictions. A model witness. But something gnawed at Mara. "Tell us about your night," she asked. Daniel's fingers interlocked tightly. "I was at a work dinner. Tacoma. Left here around 5:30. It ran long. And nobody saw you leave early? Step out." Rowan asked in a soft tone. Daniel's jaw tightened. The first visible crack. I stepped outside once. Needed fresh air, but I didn't go anywhere. I would never leave my children alone." Mara wrote something down, pretending not to notice the tremble in his voice. After the interview, she told Rowan, "He's grieving, but there's something he's hiding." Rowan shrugged. "Maybe it's guilt for not being home. That's common." But Mara's instincts rarely failed her. Hours later, the investigation took a sharp turn. A neighbor across the street had come forward with a blurry doorbell camera clip. Not high resolution, but just clear enough to reveal a shadowed figure approaching the Decker house around 8:14 p.m. The figure moved with purpose, confident, almost familiar with the home's layout. Not a stranger. And then, the chilling part, the person didn't knock. They used a key. Mara replayed the footage over and over. The figure was bundled in a hooded jacket, gloves on, face obscured. But height, build, posture, it all seemed familiar. When she compared it to Daniel's build from the interview room, The similarities were undeniable, but the timestamp posed a problem. Daniel claimed to be at the Tacoma dinner at that exact moment, and initial phone tower data backed up his claim. Still, something felt off. Rowan joined Mara at her desk. "We just got a call. Search teams found something in the woods behind the neighborhood." Mara stood instantly. "Show me." They drove to a remote wooded area half a mile from the Decker home. Officers clustered around a patch of disturbed dirt. It wasn't a grave, not a hiding place. Something smaller. A metal lockbox. Inside was a folded piece of paper, a flash drive, and, most disturbing, a child's friendship bracelet, the kind made of bright beads that spell out a name. But several of the letters had faded, leaving only a ghost of identity behind. "Who found this?" Mara asked. One of the officers pointed. Teenagers cutting through the woods. They saw the dirt looked freshly moved. Mara lifted the flash drive carefully, her gloves creaking. Why hide only this? Why bury a lockbox? Not evidence in the house. Rowan exhaled. Someone wanted it found, but not too easily. Or wanted us to think that, Mara added. Back at the station, technicians began decoding the drive. It was encrypted, heavily. Whoever hid it had skill. But after 30 minutes, the first file cracked open. At first glance, the footage looked like home videos. Harmless. Kids at a playground. A birthday party. Bike riding on a sunny afternoon. But the timestamp told another story. The videos were all from the week before the crime. Every angle zoomed uncomfortably close. Every clip recorded from across the street, behind bushes, or from a parked car. Someone had been watching the Decker children, carefully, obsessively, for days. Mara felt her stomach drop. This doesn't fit Daniel. Rowan frowned. Unless he filmed it to stage something. No, Mara said sharply. This is stalking behavior. Calculated. Patient. Whoever recorded this didn't act impulsively. Before they could continue viewing the drive, a technician rushed in, face pale. Detectives, you need to see the last file. They clicked it open. A grainy nighttime clip appeared. Filmed from inside a car. The camera was aimed at the Decker home. A figure walked toward the house. The same hooded figure from the doorbell footage. But this time, they turned slightly toward the camera, not revealing their face, but revealing something else. A badge clipped to their belt. Law enforcement. Someone with access to homes and people. Mara felt the cold sweep through her chest. Rowan, this wasn't a break-in. She looked directly at him. This was an inside job. And Rowan, who had been calm all day, suddenly went completely still. Detective Rowan Hale didn't sleep the night the search teams drained the drainage pond. He sat in his car with the engine off, staring into the darkness, replaying every detail of the investigation like a broken film reel. Something was wrong, something he had missed, and as dawn bled across the Washington tree-line, he finally understood what that something was. The Decker home wasn't a crime scene. It was a message. When Rowan returned to the house that morning, he expected the usual crowd of investigators and tech specialists. But the driveway was empty, the tape fluttering weakly in the wind. The silence was unnatural, so deep it felt staged. He walked to the front door, the floor creaking beneath him, and felt the temperature shift as if the house exhaled at his arrival. He checked room by room, searching for anything overlooked. Nothing moved. Not the curtains. Not the dust. Not even the shadows. Until he reached the hallway leading to the basement stairs. Last night, that door had been sealed. Now it stood open. A cold draft rolled up the steps, carrying a faint metallic scent. Rowan pulled out his phone to call for backup. But before he could dial, he noticed something at the top of the steps. A toy car, perfectly centered, facing him. The same model one of the children was last seen playing with. Rowan swallowed hard. It could be a coincidence. Or it could be a breadcrumb. He descended slowly, careful not to disturb the dust patterns on the stairs. The basement was dim. Only a single bulb flickered overhead, casting a heartbeat rhythm of light. As the room brightened, Rowan noticed something he hadn't seen before. A second door, a narrow utility panel, half hidden behind a shelving unit. Whoever staged the primary basement scene must have assumed investigators wouldn't check behind-the-wall storage. And they hadn't, until now. He approached the utility door, noticing smudges around the handle, as if someone with shaking hands had gripped it. With a deep breath, Rowan lifted the latch. The door opened with a whisper. Inside was a very small room, no larger than a closet. The walls were bare concrete. The air was still, almost reserved. But on the floor sat a single cardboard box with 3 items inside. A folded drawing made in crayon, a receipt from a local hardware store, and a phone. Rowan's stomach tightened. Someone placed these here. Someone wanted them found. He picked up the phone first. It was powered off, battery nearly drained. When he held the power button, the screen lit up with a lock screen image. The Decker children smiling beside their mother during a picnic last summer. The sight hit Rowan harder than he expected. This was no trophy. This was a warning. He returned to the other items. The drawing showed a house, this house, with a small X marked on the basement. The receipt was only 2 days old. Someone connected to the case had returned to the home after the initial crime. Someone who was supposed to be somewhere else. Rowan climbed back upstairs and stepped out onto the porch, dialing command as he walked in the front yard. "We've been played," he said into the phone. "Someone's been accessing the Decker property after the crime. And I think—" But he stopped. Across the street, a figure stood beside a silver SUV, a hood pulled low, hands in pockets, unmoving, watching him. Rowan froze, mind racing. The SUV's license plate was covered. The figure didn't flinch, didn't turn, didn't even appear to breathe. They simply stood there, as if waiting to confirm Rowan had found the hidden room, as if the entire investigation had been choreographed around this moment. "Unit 12, say again?" the dispatcher crackled. But Rowan didn't answer, because the figure slowly raised the phone and snapped a photo of him. Rowan took a step forward. "Hey, stay right there." The figure stepped into the SUV, slammed the door shut, and peeled away from the curb. Rowan sprinted to his car. Engine roared to life as he sped after the SUV. Gravel shot from his tires as he chased the unknown driver down the wooded road that curved out of the Decker neighborhood. The chase intensified, twists, turns, sharp bends. But the SUV seemed to know the terrain, weaving between trees with impossible precision. Whoever was behind the wheel wasn't running from the investigation. They were leading it. After 3 miles, the SUV veered onto a dirt logging road and vanished into the trees. Rowan followed, but the moment he cleared the ridge, he stopped short. The road ended abruptly at a cliff. The SUV was gone. No tracks. No engine noise. Nothing. It was as if the vehicle had dissolved into the forest. Rowan stepped out, scanning the tree line as the wind whispered through the pines. The morning sun broke across the mountains, exposing the forest in shades of gold. And that's when he heard it, a phone notification coming from his pocket. Rowan pulled out his phone. A new image had been sent from an unknown number. It was a photo taken moments earlier. Him standing alone in front of the Decker home. Below it, a single message. "You're asking the wrong questions. Start with the person who called 911. Rowan's pulse hammered in his ears, because the 911 call came from a neighbor who had insisted she saw nothing. A neighbor who had an alibi that never fully checked out. A neighbor who conveniently left town the morning after the crime. And now the killer, or someone working with them, was pointing directly at her. Rowan stared at the message, the cliffside wind wrapping around him like a warning. The case wasn't closing. It was opening, and the person who set this chain of events in motion wasn't done, not even close.